Today is March the 10th, 2023, and today we are here with Katt Massey, who's running for the Amarillo City Council, Place 3. Katt, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Let's tell the voters why you're running for City Council.
Why I'm running for City Council. First off, I am a young mother and I am a concerned taxpayer. And I have also worked for the city of Amarillo and had a front row seat of what's going on. And in my path and in my journey, I've seen things that are working well, but I've seen things that need changing. Transparency, communication, different facets of that, our budget. So having a front row to that and following my heart, my calling has really laid out my path towards running and following it for my community and for my fellow Amarillo citizens that live here, and then my children, leaving Amarillo better than when I found it. I was born and raised here, and I love this community, and I brought my babies back to live here as well and be raised here. So I'm doing it for the citizens. I'm doing it to build a bridge.
So why did you choose Place 3?
3's my lucky number, and I just, there's people in all the races that have run before, and I just slid in. Luck of the draw because it's my lucky number 3. So
what? Let's talk a little bit about what you see the role of the City Council being. What's their role?
The role of City Council is to represent the people of Amarillo, listen to the people of Amarillo, really listen to them. And they guide us, we help guide them, and working together to figure out solutions for our community. I think by listening to our community members, we can gain a lot of insight of what we need to get done. Whether it's a road or if it's how this process should work, if it's a builder and, he needs help getting his permits through. There's a lot of different things that we can gain from our citizens. We all have a different perspective on how things should be done. And I think that input is really important. But really it is to represent the city and do what's best for them and by listening to them.
Well, we have a lot of good candidates running this cycle, and I think that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is?
I think people are hungry for change. I think everyone who's running, I nod my hat to because I've seen how the inside works, and I also know how hard it is to put yourself on the line as I'm doing it now. But I think people are hungry, and I think people want that change, and they know that they can help in a way, and that's admirable. I love seeing it stacked. It's a lot, but it really speaks volumes of what we need to do with our city council.
Yeah, there really won't be any losers. You'll just have a few that get more votes.
Right.
So it's going to be who can get their vote out. So let's talk about your background. And you said you worked at the city. What'd you do? Just kind of give your resume to us briefly.
You want pre-city or do you want city forward?
Yeah, let's give it all so you understand where you came from.
Okay. First and foremost, I've started working for my parents at a really young age. They have a landscape construction business here in the city, and I would answer the phone for them. And if I got in trouble, I was out weed eating for Dad, which was rare. So I grew a very strong work ethic from the get-go. My family has a strong work ethic. It's built in our blood. So from there, I went to college at East Central University in Ada, Oklahoma. And out of college, I worked for my dad again. I was there for about 4 years. And then I went to Dallas, and I worked for a family that was once residents of Amarillo that had moved their residence to Dallas. And I basically ran their life. I was their admin assistant and executive assistant, all the assistants. And there I was able to help them host parties for presidential candidates, Texas delegates, all kinds of, we got to host fundraisers for them. So I got my eyes open to what it is to serve. And I've always been a servant and had a servant's heart. So I moved back to Amarillo. I lived there for 7 years. I moved back to Amarillo at the end of 2018. I left the job with the family. It was just a change I needed to have because I had a little girl, and that life was fast and furious, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I wanted to bring my baby home. I wanted her to be raised in the community that I was raised in. So from there, I kind of started my own little business, and then that big C word happened, COVID, and needed to make a change for my family. I needed to have steady income. So I started looking at all the things that I knew how to do. Personal assistant, serving. I looked at waiting tables. I was applying everywhere. And I saw the position come up at the city to be the assistant to the mayor. And I thought, that's interesting. I love Amarillo. I think it would be interesting to work for the city that I love. And see, I've always wondered how things work from the inside. The mechanicals of business just have been really fascinating. So I said, I know how to do that. And I put it off. And then towards the end of when we were coming out of all the things, I said, I'll just look and see if that position is still available. And so I applied, and I was starting, it takes a while at the city to get things done. So I was started about a month later, and I hit the ground running. I learned all kinds of things. I got to see the city from a 20,000-foot view, all different facets. My position was working as a mayor's assistant. I looked at myself, and I prided myself on getting her to the places she needed to go so she could be with the citizens. And then also citizens' responses, getting people in touch with the right people at the city to get what they needed. And that was what I took the most pride in, was listening to our citizens, hearing what they needed, hearing where things could be changed. You're in a communication channel where someone's really mad at solid waste, and then you don't realize you're trying to figure out what that disconnect is, and you really just have a yearning to figure out how to make these communication channels work. And so talking with the citizens, having them be heard, getting them to the right place where they needed to go was very fascinating to me. And I was also getting to serve the community and learn about the community from, like I said, a 20,000-foot view. And I was there for about 1.5 years, and then I needed to make a change. It wasn't quite working out the way I thought it would. There was some things that I was like, I still want to serve my city, but I don't know if city management's where I need to be. I need to be somewhere else. So I applied to be the beautification and public arts coordinator. And I was hesitant about that because I was still serving my fellow citizens in that position, but I was going to another position that I knew very well, and that's because of the landscape construction business and then my involvement with the murals in the city. It was something I knew, but it just was like, no, you must apply. My heart just said, you've got to make a change. So I went, and I was the beautification and public arts coordinator, and I started that position in June of 2022. And then I was there. I got things rolling for them. It was also a brand new position. And so from there, I got things rolling, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. And you can kind of look back at how my timeline has played out and how I'm getting to here, because there was something greater that I needed to do for my community. And I think giving me the view of being inside of the organization really gave me the eye-opening of I need to be a bridge. I need to figure out how we can do some things better, because this is interesting. Like it's all very fast. So I left the beautification and public arts position at the end of December so I could run. And my calling really hit me about August of 2022. And of course, you have to ask your spouse. He was not for it because he's seen it and he knows how things are right now. And I said, I have to help. There is something that I can do, that I can help. And, I'm running for me. I'm running my own race. No one in that city government encouraged me to do this. I am here for my citizens, and I'm here to run my race because I've seen it, like I said, front row. And I really think that I can help make some changes.
Well, that's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information.
So of course, we know what happened with the city going around the voters with the tax anticipation notes, and that really angered the citizens. I mean, I went door to door with some of my precinct chairs, and I mean, they were mad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, over 90% were livid and not happy. And I was, I had to calm some of them down. I mean, they're literally ready to take up arms. I don't think the city leaders knew or had any understanding of what the citizens really felt.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that happened?
The Civic Center, the way it did happen, or
Why they thought that was a good idea?
I think, in all honesty, they thought that they were doing the best for the community. I think that that's where a lot of my struggle comes from, because it wasn't what the voters wanted. It's not what they had voted on just recently. So I think in all, they felt like they were doing the right thing by trying to save money and do it this way. But I also felt, there's my transparency and my communication key, that it could have been communicated in a better way. And I think that they could have listened more. Listening is very important. And when you have a city of 200,000 people, you need to listen to them. And I can imagine, I'm a taxpayer as well. It wasn't great. And we can all agree that was not a good thing. And so looking back at my timeline, I think you can kind of see how things have played out as to why I'm here and why I'm in this seat running.
Well, and how are we going to fix some of the things that they put in motion because they thought they were going to succeed, and that we're going to have to pay for? Yeah. Like the new city hall. Can that be stopped?
I need to do more research on how those contracts are in place, what's going on with those, if there's a way that we could stop it, or if there's a way, I mean, if we can't, then I don't want to cost our taxpayers more money by not doing, you've got to weigh what's going on. Is it going to cost us more money to try to fight legal battles with contractors, or is it going to cost us, not as much money to just finish the project? I've got to get in and see what that looks like. I don't know what the contracts are. I just know that it's in motion. So
I would think they would be able to sell it, because do we need a new city hall?
Honestly, I have been in City Hall and I have unplugged my telephone and sparks have flown. And it's kind of always worried if the heat's going to go out, if we're going to have electricity. It's a beautiful building. There are I think improvements can be made to buildings. But again, I also know that they're at max capacity with how many people that they're housing in City Hall. We have parks in a whole nother department. We're all spread out, and I think that creates a communication disconnect between our departments. So City Hall's an interesting one, because I have been inside City Hall and I've worked in it and been afraid for the safety of myself in that building. So, and I also know that it would be helpful if we had departments in the same building so we can communicate faster for our citizens and get projects done. I think that's a big problem with building safety. And some of the department heads work together on projects, but they're not in the same room to get things done. So you're 5 steps behind, even though this other person is 20 steps ahead. So
what will they do with the current city hall?
I don't know. I've heard they were going to tear it down. I don't know what the plans are specifically for it. There was a talk of it being torn down for a park and green spaces should things have happened with the Civic Center and the ballpark, but I'm not sure where the plan stands now.
Well, I think that's something that, the citizens haven't received the tax bill on the new city hall yet, because they use certificates of obligation, right?
Yes, sir.
Which is another way to go around the voters, kind of like our county did, using COs without voter input. And I just think that really rubs people the wrong way.
It does.
So what do you think the role of an elected official is? Is it to do what you think's best for the community, or is it to listen to the voters and do what they want?
Well, you're representing the voters. So you've got to listen to your voters. That is first and foremost. And that's where I feel communication, stakeholder meetings, other avenues that we can have people participate in our city hall meetings would be beneficial, because it's hard to reach 200,000 people. You've got a great followership with 62,000 for this. I think that this is one way to start. Our communication channels are changing, ever changing. There are some communities in this city that still receive their messaging by word of mouth. And so we've got to figure out the right channels so we can hear what our citizens are saying, so we can do right by our voters. And we also have to have great voter turnout. But the voters who vote, their vote counts. So
that's what I tell people. If you didn't, and we have some of them running for elective office that didn't vote. So to me, if you haven't participated in an election as a voter, how can we expect you to care about policy?
it's a very interesting statement.
But they're out there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I pride myself on
But
that.
you won't see them here because I won't interview them.
Interesting.
Because I think I'm wasting my time and the voters' time.
I've always said you can't complain if you don't vote.
That's right.
So, that's one thing that's very exciting for me is I mentioned my little girl. She's almost 5, and her birthday falls around the May elections. And so that is our deal. She has voted in every single election with me since she's been able to. And we go vote. She gets her sticker. We get a picture. And now I have a 20-month-old son, and we've started him out the same way. So we went to the Veterans Center and we voted, and we went and looked at the helicopters, and we made it a thing.
Sure.
And I think instilling that in our younger generation is very important. And I'm very excited that I get to do that and share the importance with it. And I think her seeing me in the roles that I've been in with the city helps her civic pride. I know my civic pride was instilled with me when I was little. And so her seeing me in the position of, oh, what's city council, Mom? What's this? And I get to teach that to her now. I do teach that to her now. So
what do you think about the parking they put downtown, the parking fees?
are you saying the on the street parking or the parking garage?
On street.
I'm not a fan. I know when I lived in Dallas, we had valet, and some places it was illegal to not valet. You'd have to, that's a lot more denser. We're not that. I think the revenue that it brings in is good, but it's not enough to warrant the complaints that we have about it. I know businesses that would call and complain because they have someone coming in who's just running in to run a check-in for a reason, and they're getting a ticket.
Yep.
And they've only been there for 5 minutes.
Yep.
I mean, our parking attendant is very good at her job. And I don't know. I know that there was one, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and I don't see where the money is that. All income makes a good difference, but you're paying on it, and
Yeah, is the cost of running that system.
And I don't know what the cost to run the system is, but
I can glance at it and tell you it's costing them more to run it than they're bringing in revenue.
probably. And I know that there was some adjustments made to make the first hour free or the first 15 minutes free, but
it's
I fumble with my app trying to figure out which car I'm in.
Not everybody has a smartphone.
Right.
Number one.
Right.
And number two, we don't have a parking problem downtown.
No, we don't.
And it's not fair to other businesses. To the businesses downtown, all of a sudden tax their customers. But if they're on Georgia or somewhere or Bell, their customers don't have to pay a tax to come into their business.
Exactly. And I'm a rule follower, so I do pay because I do follow the rules, and it is.
I don't.
And
I'm not a rule follower. I just do what's right.
Right.
I don't care what the rules are.
Yes, that too. I do what's right, but I do like to follow the rules, and I pay. But sometimes my husband's a prime example. He's like, I'm not going to get my phone out. And he calls me and asks me if I can plug it in on his phone. So that's kind of it's a task.
And this isn't Dallas.
We're not Dallas.
But they want to make us Dallas, and they want to think that they're in Dallas. Well, if you want to be in Dallas, go to Dallas.
That's
To
why I
me, our
came
city
home.
should focus on what makes us unique, not what somebody else is like. That doesn't even register with me, and I can't understand why they would want to. I hate going to Dallas, and I hate going to Austin because it's so nice to come back here where you don't have all that traffic and congestion and people everywhere. But the other thing that I think a lot of people don't like is I call it the rain tax, where they put the drainage fee, they call it, based on your property size, which to me that would be a property tax, right? Why didn't they raise property taxes and be honest? Or add $5 to your trash because trash isn't regulated.
That's
Why
an
would they
interesting thought.
go through all this? That system, I can assure you, is costing more to run than it's bringing in when they could have raised revenue so easily another way without creating all these legal nightmares. And they don't have any way to collect it because they can't determine what kind of a tax it is. So would you be for rescinding that fee?
Again, I think I've got to get in and really, like you said, figuring out where it's going and how to get it all played out, and how do we rescind it, and what is
Same
that
way
covering?
they put it in.
Taking
Still
it
not.
out. You know,
It's easy.
it's easy, and if it's saving the taxpayers' money, it's something we should consider for sure.
Well, it's just, it's one of those things that they did to pull the wool over the eyes of the voters and in a lot of people's opinion. So,
And that's not listening to the voters.
that's right. Well, they said, well, Houston did it, so why can't we? That doesn't mean it's right. And the other thing is Amarillo really isn't growing. It's growing outside the city limits, but it's not growing inside. We're not adding utility customers. How would you address that?
We've got the loop coming in, and so I would hope with that we can gain more within our city limits. You do see the growth that's on moving towards Canyon, and you do see the growth that is happening on the northwest part of town. You do see those things happening. But encouraging it on the inside is we've got to have good infrastructure. We've got to be able to have areas where builders can build, or, things can be turned to where there's residential spaces that can be provided. That's why you see so many people leaving the city, is to build, because they've got the room and they've got the infrastructure. So infrastructure is an important tool, and Amarillo's is old and there's things that need to be addressed within that. And our roads and streets also need to be, repaired and kept up to where they're drivable. So there's so many different things to that one.
Well, I think a lot of it is because they're not planning things logically in a direction to help the city grow in a manageable way. To me, it's pretty simple. You run water lines out where you want the growth to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And the builders will come. It's that simple. And water's cheap. Running a water line is very inexpensive. And I've asked the city this. I've talked to them. And they say, oh, well, we would have to provide all services. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. They said, well, that's what our city charter says. Well, 3 votes, you can change the city charter. Change it. Fix it. But nobody wants to do anything. And so in not doing that, they're not controlling the growth. It's all going to Bushland or Canyon, or now Claude is booming outside the city limits, when it would be relatively easy just using water lines and bill that water to bring in revenue at a low cost. I think people would like that. And I'd rather have one hole in my aquifer than thousands of wells. But, they all talk about, protecting the environment, but what they do in so doing is destroy it. I mean, just simple things like that I think could be. What I don't understand is why we don't have anybody in the city that even seems to be able to propose some common sense solutions.
I've not thought of it in the way of poking 1,000 holes in one aquifer versus one. So that is an interesting way to look at that. And I agree, water is a valuable resource in this community, and we're not getting much of it from the sky to refill what we've got. So that's a very interesting way, and I'm gonna hold that. That's really interesting.
Well, to me, that makes sense because and people don't want to have to mess with a well. They'd prefer to be on city water. Mm-hmm. Septic is not an issue. Those things are simple, and if people understood how it worked, that's actually much greener and environmentally friendly than the way the city processes the sewage. But they work, and they don't cause homeowners any problem if they're put in properly. But water is something, if that well goes out, it's expensive. They have to replace the pump or lightning strikes it, It's expensive for them to maintain. So, and it's relatively, in the large scheme of things, inexpensive to run water. And we got plenty of water. Don't let them fool you. One farmer in Dalhart is putting more water out in an afternoon than the entire people of city of Amarillo use in a month.
Interesting.
So, is there what do you think the top three issues are that you want to address once you get elected?
I have 4. Is that okay?
4? Yeah,
I have 4.
4 is good.
Okay.
But I thought 3 was your lucky number.
3 is my lucky number. I have my bonus number down here. That's my one to grow on. Transparency, first and foremost. I'm a communicator by nature, and I think, like I mentioned, being where I was and seeing the issues within that, communication, listening, shining a light on City Hall. Our citizens need to know what's going on so they're not left in the dark. Police and fire, our first responders, are very important. You see that they're not being taken care of the way they should be, and we need to take care of them because they take care of us. Fiscal, taking care of our budget, maintaining a budget and being a guardian of our taxpayers' dollars is very important. Seeing ways that we can improve upon in that area. And then also my bonus one, because I am a beautification person, is cleaning up our city. Beautification isn't always about murals. That's visible change that can inspire, but it's the trash. It's making sure we don't take a step backwards. I mean, we saw how it worked out for us when we moved to 1 time a week trash. I'm making sure we don't go backwards, that we're going forwards in that stuff. And then also the outward appearance, working with code enforcement, building safety, and solid waste to ensure that people are following proper codes to ensure that their properties are kept upright. So those are very important to me, but the top 3 for sure are my most important.
Well, I've proposed this to the city, and they looked at me like I was from outer space. I'm like, I think you could do one simple thing. This would be the cleanest city in the country. And all you have to do is, instead of charging people to take trash to the dump, pay them. You'll have the cleanest town overnight. And, why don't they sub out their trash or part of it? Do it in one area and see how it works, and give it to 4 or 5 different vendors, because you never give them to one. And I bet you they could handle the trash much more cost effectively than the city. And you wouldn't have to maintain all that equipment or employees or any of that stuff. And then you're getting it back from the homeowners. I mean, why wouldn't you do? I mean, to me, that would be a simple way to save a lot of money.
I like your ideas. Why don't you run? Have you been asked that question?
Oh yeah, I've been asked a lot of times, why do I not run for public office? Number one, I'm too busy running all my own businesses and properties, and number two is I think I can have a much. If I'm in one position, that's just it. Then I have to do that position and focus on that. So I'm in a box. Whereas what I do now, I'm all over the country. I do whatever I want.
Fascinating.
And I'm not responsible for any particular position.
Well, I think you've got great ideas. And that's what it takes, is hearing what people have to say and what people think would work.
Well, it's simple. I mean, it's
live.
but business people who own businesses and have had to solve problems all their life and do it with nothing, we have to use our heads and come up with solutions to problems. So we want solutions. And I'm no different than 90% of every voter out there. We want somebody to say, okay, let's try something. You don't have to do the whole city. You know, it's like somebody was maybe we don't agree, and maybe some people think this will work and some people think that won't. But if you don't try anything, nothing changes.
You're right.
Just try something. Try it in a zip code, or try it in a precinct or a county commissioner's precinct or whatever. Try it.
I agree. My dad always would say, throw it on the wall and see if it sticks.
There you go.
And that's kind of been a motto. You don't know unless you try. And there's no harm in trying unless you hurt yourself. But there's no harm in it.
Another complaint that I hear about the city is, why do they want to be in all these businesses? You know, like the real estate business. You know, they've got those spaces downtown by that parking garage, and they have at least, I don't think any of them except for one, and they have basically had to give it away. Mm-hmm. But they've been sitting there for what, 5 years vacant?
I think so.
Do you think government should be competing against private business?
I don't think so.
I always say, if there was one thing one constitutional amendment should be a separation of government and business. To me, they shouldn't mix. Period.
It creates a lot of...
Well, you're picking winners and losers.
Yeah.
It's wrong, I think. Government should stick to what it does best, which is the services that the city and the community needs. Water, sewer, streets, police, fire, that you really would be difficult to sub to private sources. Some things that the city does that are necessary today could be subbed out, like trash. But you could sub out the water. I mean, there's private companies that could run the water system, maybe the sewer system, but that's probably not practical. But some things are practical. So I'm just about trying to keep how we would keep efficiency and reduce complexity.
Practically back to basics.
I think that's the word.
That's it.
Yep.
Getting back to basics practically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you may not be able to do it overnight.
No, changes. 2 years is not a long time to make a lot of change. You're getting thrown into budgets, which is a week-long process and hours long of digging in, and then you're working, and then all of a sudden you're campaigning again should you want to be an incumbent. So 2 years is not a lot of, you can start good conversations and you can start processes, but you've got to have that good run at making, my mom always says 5 years to know what you're doing. So you've got to have a good run at making sure that you have solid steps in place to make sure your project is pulled through and processes are changed.
Yep. Takes time.
Takes time and patience.
Well, we business people, we look at things a little bit different because we can make the decision. So with government, you're dealing with bureaucracy. So it takes a little longer to turn the ship. But what do you have anything else you'd like to tell the voters as to why they should choose you over your opponent so you're not in a runoff?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, I am a young mom and I want my babies to come back here. And I'm also a taxpayer. My husband does business. We both do business here. My family has. And I want to do good for my citizens. And I know you hear my institutional knowledge of who I worked for and where I worked for. But if you look at my timeline and my why, there's a reason I'm here. And it's to build that bridge. And I do know a little bit of how the city works, and I have observed processes and different things, so I can take what I've learned and put some processes into motion to make a change for our community. I'm running my race. I'm running for my community, and I'm running for my family, my babies, and their fellow generations after them.
Posterity.
Yes, I'm a third. I was asking my dad. I'm a third or I'm either fourth generation raising the fifth or third. But what's neat is my dad and my grandmother and my mom and I all went to the same middle school and all went to the same high school. So there's so many different families in this community that have those same stories. And I know it would tickle them to have their grandkids say the same thing one day. I know I would love that for my kids and my grandchildren. So
Well, that's what they call community.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Do you have a website, or how can voters learn more about you?
I do. My website is, I'm Katt. I had to throw in an extra T. So I'm KATT, 4, Amarillo.com. My email is KATT, 4, Amarillo @gmail.com. And then I'm on Facebook under the same handle, Katt, KATT, 4, Amarillo. So you can find me there. Send me a direct message. Send me an email. If there's a group you'd love for me to come talk to, I want to get to know who I'm representing. So these conversations are the best way to do that.
All right, Katt. Well, we really appreciate you coming, and good luck on the campaign trail. And I'm sure we'll see you at numerous and sundry forums between now and May the 6th. And remind everybody to make sure everybody they know is registered to vote.
Yes, sir.
I think April 6th is the last day. Register. You can register at our headquarters, 4217 Southwest 21st. And we have most of the candidates' signs over there. If they voted in the primary, we'll help them get their stuff out. So it's all about voting and participating. And we appreciate you coming to see us.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for all the work that you do for our community.
No problem.
Yeah, you've got a good reach. Thank you.